Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today, my guest is Mike Ricksecker. First, I have a couple of announcements. We are once again gearing up to shoot Season 2 of the Forbidden documentary series, which will take a bit of a turn from Season 1. We're very excited about it. We're going to set a goal for the end of the month to have the resources to be able to travel to Utah and Nevada. But once again, we're going to need your help. We are completely self-funded, and we need funding for travel, gas, and lodging, which is incredibly expensive right now. If you would like to help with Season 2 of the Forbidden documentary series, the best ways to do so are purchase your limited edition version of Episode 1 right from our website. It's only $3 for a standard definition version, $5 for 4K. Also, you can make a donation of any amount at supportfkn.com or use that link right in the description. If you enjoy the content from Forbidden Knowledge News and the Forbidden Knowledge Network and you want to help us create more and more incredible content, click those links in the description. Help us out. Another way to support us is through a Rokfin premium membership. With that, you get access to not only all of our premium content, but all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin, and there's tons of them. You can also now get Forbidden Knowledge News live 5 days a week on Rokfin, Rumble, and our website. Our website is forbiddenknowledge.news. It's the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. We feature some of your favorite podcasts there, and you can always get every new episode of Forbidden Knowledge News on Rokfin, Odyssey, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Today I want to welcome back to the show Mike Ricksecker. He is an author and researcher that has appeared on multiple television shows and programs as a paranormal historian. He also produces his own internet supernatural-based shows on the Haunted Road Media YouTube channel, and he is the producer and director of the docuseries The Shadow Dimension, which is available on several streaming platforms. Haunted Road Media is also his own paranormal and supernatural book publishing and video production company, representing a number of paranormal authors. Mike, welcome back. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. Thanks for having me back, Chris. Always great talking with you.
Yes, always a fun conversation. This is going to be super fun today. We're going to discuss your book, Travels Through Time, where you explore the nature of time, dimensions, the possibilities of time travel, and the more I come to understand tiny pieces of the nature of reality, the more I come aware that time is not linear and possibly more like the pages of a book, where every single moment is always accessible and all the data from start to finish is playing out at the same time, therefore giving us access to possibly perceivable past, present, and future all at the same time. But the rabbit hole really goes much deeper and more incredible than we understand. And we've got a lot to get into. The book is incredible, but before we get into this, for those that may not be familiar, tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Yeah. Well, my name's Mike Ricksecker. I've this book here, Travels Through Time, is my 13th. So it's the beginning of the Connecting to the Universe series, which is a new series that I'm putting together in which we get into a lot of deep esoteric topics. But I thought I would start with kind of the base of the inner workings of the cosmos. I've been on a number of the television shows like Ancient Aliens, The Unexplained, The Alaska Triangle, those sorts of things. I've done a few things with Gaia. And you can find me at a lot of different events. I do a lot of public speaking engagements and things like that as well.
Right on. Now, what brought you to write this particular book?
Well, I've always had an interest in time. It's I was always fascinated going back to when I was a child, and I saw the movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour, and that movie kind of permeates in and out throughout the book as well. I do make a lot of other pop culture references as well, because I think it's this is a really deep topic, so I think it helps to have those references back to popular culture, something that we've seen, we've watched, something we've been able to wrap our head around when we're talking about dimensions and the nature of time. That doesn't it's a little bit more difficult if you're just looking at it from a scientific point of view. But when I was a kid, I totally fell in love with that movie, and the idea that he was actually able to will his consciousness to another point in time, back to 1912, because he wanted to meet this woman. And it's something that, I actually attempted when I was 14 years old. And we had made a big move when I was 13 from where we had spent the last 10 years in Massachusetts. We'd moved back to Ohio, and I was missing my friends. I was homesick. And remembering that particular movie, I tried to actually do that. And what ended up happening was I had put myself into such a meditative state that, and again, I was 14, I had no idea what I was doing, that I started feeling like this sensation of undulating waves and then like a static electricity. And that shocked me. So I snapped right out of the state that I was in. But talking with people later on, as I got older, in some of the different circles that I was running in, I came to find out that I was actually on the verge of having an out-of-body experience. So this is something that has stuck with me for a long, long time. And as I've done other research in other areas regarding supernatural, strange phenomenon, the Alaska Triangle, things like this, it seems to have always had some sort of time-related element to it. So I finally decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and write this book.
Right on. Now let's dive right deep into it. Based on your understandings, all the research you've done for the book, how does the nature of time play out in your understanding? And you actually introduce something called the stacked time theory,
Right.
which probably helps us understand this a little.
Yeah, and I hope it does. It kind of gives us a visual for it. So, time doesn't really exist. We've invented time. Humans have invented the concept of time, really to keep track of our days, to know when to plant the crops at the right time, to keep track of the seasons, to know when to show up to work at the right moment so our supervisors don't get upset with us, that sort of thing. So it's a tool that we've created, but time in and of itself doesn't really exist. And even Einstein said just before he died that time is just a stubbornly persistent illusion. It doesn't really exist. And we see in a lot of our ancient cultures that they also believe many of these same type of concepts. So when we're talking about something like what I've come up with here with stacked time theory, it incorporates that notion that time doesn't exist. And it occurred to me a good 20 years ago as I was doing things like paranormal investigations and experiencing different phenomena and what have you, that, okay, perhaps it's not that river of time, that, analogy that we've had for a long, long time, that, every moment that has happened, is happening, and will happen are all happening concurrently. And all of those moments are stacked on top of each other like a photograph. And there are certain moments that will resonate the same frequency for just a brief period of time, and we'll get a glimpse of the other one. So sometimes when somebody says they've seen like an apparition or a ghost, or sometimes an entire scene will play out before them, and a lot of times we call that like a residual haunting or whatever. But in many cases, those people in that scene will turn and look at us as we are the ghosts, and this is what we refer to as a time slip. But kind of like you were saying at the very, very beginning, everything is already here. All the information, all the data, all those moments are already here. And we're kind of stuck within the rules that have been applied to this universe. But sometimes those rules can be bent and broken. We get glimpses of these other moments in time.
Now, there's a couple of experiences and phenomena that people have, such as deja vu or the Mandela effect, that I'm wondering if this could be indications of what you're discussing now.
Yeah, absolutely. Something like the Mandela effect. This is, actually time travelers have gone back. Something has happened that has altered the timeline. And so then, the Mandela effect plays out where people have memories of a different past. And that's not to say, somebody went back with intention to create, because a lot of times this happens with branding, like, Fruit Loops, the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, Oscar Mayer. People remember it differently. It's not that somebody intentionally went back in time to change those things. they went back in time, did something else, and one of the repercussions was that happening. With deja vu, this happens a lot. After one has had perhaps a dream of being at a particular location. So it's really kind of premonitory that they've had a dream of a location, and they might have. Remember, when we dream, a lot of times we don't remember all the details. Sometimes we remember a vivid one, but other times, a little scant detail here or there. But all of a sudden, we'll show up in a place, and it's like, I've been here before. And so, in that particular instance, we are traveling within our dreams, and we actually get to see glimpses of other moments. Or if we look at it from, like a past life perspective, with all time happening concurrently, that means all of your lives, past, present, and future, are all here existing. So you may be tapping into something, you walk into a location that one of your other lives is actually living within, and so it feels familiar to you.
We're going to get into some examples of time travel and possible time slips, but before we do that, you also touch on some ancient symbolism and alchemy that could point to the nature of time in our reality.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big one for me is the Ouroboros. It's that snake eating its own tail, and it's really our first alchemical symbol that we have, and it was really the symbol for constant recycle and renewal. Where we first see this was on the burial shrine of King Tut. So within the shrine, that's where the sarcophagi were. And it actually encircles his head and his feet. And people kind of don't realize it also encircled his feet. But what's interesting about this, and we have to keep in mind, that this is the oldest representation that we have found to date. That doesn't mean that's the first time it was ever used. Most likely predated that, and this is something that they wanted to be able to basically symbolize the renewal of his life as he passed away. They want him to come back. And so I actually, of all things, liken this to something that we have recently discovered here in modern times, one of our scientific research projects down in Antarctica, the Anita Project and the Ice Cube Project, in which they have basically discovered neutrinos working in a opposite manner than what they're supposed to. They were down there at the South Pole studying these neutrinos coming from space, and they actually detected them running in reverse coming up out of the Earth's core. So through their studies in this nature, and this is a scientific paper that was published earlier this year, the scientists themselves are saying, well, this actually is indicative of a parallel universe running in reverse time. And so when I take that, okay, so we would have two universes, one running in one direction, one running in the other, in opposite ways. So the beginning of one is the end of the other, and the end of one is the beginning of the other. So, it's really the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega. And we actually see this as well within different representations of the Ouroboros, where, you'll have the two colors, like the red track, the green track. And as they come back around, they meet at the location where the mouth is eating the tail. And so for me, this is indicative of the Big Bang. And again, constant recycle renewal. So then we get to the question, okay, what was before the universe? Well, the universe was, and we experience what we're experiencing. And as the beginning meets the end, once again, the universe is recycled. So what comes after the universe? Well, the universe. So it's constantly recycling. We see this in our ancient symbolism.
So it's possible that our ancient ancestors had quite a better understanding of this and were possibly able to utilize actual time travel in a sense. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that they were, that they knew this knowledge. They were able to move back and forth throughout time. We see things like Stargate symbolism and things like this all over the world. And so, were they also using these Stargates not just to travel across the cosmos, but also to travel back and forth between different periods of time? And I believe that they actually had this knowledge to be able to do so. Because you have things like you look at, I'll probably end up talking a lot about Egypt throughout this, but you even look at other cultures like the Australian Aboriginals, and the Australian Aboriginal culture. This is like one of our oldest religions in the world. We can date it back 60,000 years, and it probably goes back, of course, even further. But in their belief system, it's that, again, time does not exist. Time is all concurrent. And so their gods are still currently living with us right now because time doesn't exist. It's all here right now.
Now, you mentioned Egypt. What are some of the clues that you've gotten from looking at some of the artifacts, scriptures, and texts from Egypt?
Yeah, well, we already talked about the Ouroboros. Another big one is what we call the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which it's not really the title of it. It's the Book of Going Forth by Day, but Book of the Dead sounds a lot cooler, right? And so what people don't really realize with this, it's not just like one book. It's a series of spells that were used during the funerary rites, and there's like no one complete set of these. So you might have a sarcophagus with a couple of the spells written on it. You might have a small scroll with a few things written on it. The largest one that we have, and the most beautiful and ornate, is the Papyrus of Ani, which was discovered in his tomb. He was a royal scribe, which was a position of great prominence. We don't know if it was written by him or was written by maybe he had scribes commissioned after he passed away to have this written. So it might be his hand, it might not. We don't know, but it's very large, very beautiful, very ornate. And within it, it really just it depicts his journey through the afterlife. So it's a whole entire narrative of him. His wife Tudu is there, and throughout his journey, the entire time, he's dead. He has passed away, but yet he has this, for example, a scene there with Atum, which is the god or Neter of creation, created the universe, and he asked Atum, what will be the span of my life? Now remember, he's already dead. He's already in the afterlife, and he's asking what the span of his life will be. And Atum says it will be for millions of years, and for on millions of years. So he's showing this really great length of time that he's going to be alive. But then he starts layering it, kind of like what we were talking about with our stacked time theory. So he has these layers of time that are built in. And then he starts talking about in the same page, he starts talking about the renewal of the earth, that the earth will return to the primordial waters, and we will start again, and that Atum himself will turn into a serpent. So here again, we're back to our symbolism of the Ouroboros. So we have a layering of time, and then we have a constant recycling and renewal of the universe. So it's a really beautiful piece.
It is. Now, I want to move forward into history to modern times and get your insights into the possibilities that some of our modern sciences and technologies, extremely advanced quantum sciences, and possibly what we're doing at places like CERN could affect the fabric of our time.
Well, yeah, they're doing kind of all kinds of interesting experiments there at CERN. You have other places across the globe where they are. Last November, there was a paper published in which they had stated we've built a wormhole in the lab. It's very small on the quantum level, and we had these reporters asking, well, could you put a dog through it? Which kind of, I read the article and scratching my head. Why are we immediately going to? Can we put a dog through this thing? What maybe a probe?
Yeah.
Something like that. At least the old movie Stargate, they put a probe through first before the people went through.
Or at least a robot dog.
Yeah, something, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, it's very, very small. It's at the quantum level, but they have produced a wormhole. So basically that Einstein-Rosen bridge in the lab. And so, this is just the very, very beginning of it all. And so really it's like our science is catching up to what the ancients knew, which I find fascinating. You have these interesting studies by Roger Penrose. He's a fantastic theoretical physicist, been around a long time. People that are familiar with the Penrose stairs, this was coined after his studies, his work, and it's interesting to read his interviews and watch some of his interviews, because he'll say, religiously, I'm an atheist, but I believe, and this is through his work, that after the body dies, the soul goes off to the cosmos, and he can't explain where within the cosmos the soul goes, the consciousness goes, but he's like it goes somewhere else off into the cosmos. So here again, this is something that our ancient religions have been talking about for thousands and thousands of years, and it's like our modern science is just now catching up to it.
Now, you were talking earlier at the beginning how you had your own experience where you were trying to time travel through a meditative state, and you reached this vibratory state and snapped out of it. Do you believe that this is something that each and every person could achieve just through self-consciousness exploration and meditation, that we could actually perceivably travel through time with these methods?
Yeah, I believe that. When it comes down to real time travel, it's not going to be like a DeLorean and a flux capacitor, which would be really fun. I'd love that. Hop in one and speed up to 88 miles per hour and watch the lightning encompass the car and zoom off to another point in time. But yeah, it's probably not going to be that a machine. It most likely will be consciousness. Traveling via the consciousness, because we're all we're all frequency, resonance, vibration. Our consciousness is on the fourth dimension, and every we have access to all those dimensions below us. Third dimensional object, like this cup of tea here as I continue to nurse my throat. Plane, which is 2D, a line, which is first dimension. All those are accessible to us. And the trick is trying to access the other dimensions that are above us. So like anything fifth dimension and beyond would have free access to time. We are fascinating as humans, though, because our fourth dimensional consciousness is inside a third dimensional piece of work, which is our body. So that makes us all multidimensional beings already. But I believe it's a matter of trying to tune your own frequency, your own personal resonance to the resonance of another point in time. So it would take what I believe, and we accidentally do it sometimes. This moment in time, it has to resonate with the frequency of another moment in time, and also you have to get your body at that same frequency. So there's three different things going on here at the same time. So it'll take a lot of practice, a lot of ironically time to figure it out. But I believe that's what real-time travel will end up being. Yes.
Now, you were just saying that these things could just occur at times and we wouldn't realize it. Let's get into some examples of time slips and the possibilities that we are experiencing this maybe even on a daily basis and not even realizing it. And there's different examples that you could give us of different kinds of time slips, right?
Right, exactly. I include several within the book. One of the, I'll talk about a couple here. One of the fascinating ones for me, because it involves a close personal friend of mine, Andrea Perrin, who people will recognize her from the stories of the Conjuring house, which is the house that the movie The Conjuring was based off of. Very, very different what really happened there than what they portray in the movie, because those hauntings extended out 10 years, and the incident with the Warrens was really a seance that had gone bad. It wasn't an exorcism. And it was just a couple weeks after that exorcism that Andrea was up doing her homework. Her mother, Carolyn, had woken up, was hungry, wanted some coffee, that sort of thing. So Andrea's helping out. And as Carolyn is sitting in the parlor, she looks off into the dining room area, which is where the seance that went bad happened. She was basically knocked back from the table in the dining room to the parlor. Also, she sees morphing into existence this family from the 1700s. There's a woman cooking over the hearth. Now, this is a fireplace that had been closed at that point for like 100 years. But there she is cooking over the hearth. A couple of kids are running around. There's two gentlemen sitting at a table with pewter steins. And the one says to the other, "Well, would you look at that?" As they turn and look at Carolyn. And it was like as if she was the ghost. So you have a moment here where she was actually able to get a glimpse to another point in time, and that other point in time was able to get a glimpse of her. Of course, the question then becomes, okay, what was the catalyst for that happening? And that particular house, that particular property, there's a lot that has happened there over the years. But I believe that one of the things that's helping to power that house, there's a room in the basement. It's called the well room because there's an open well with water in it. They don't still use it to drink or anything, but it's still open and there's still water. The room itself, the walls are made of limestone and they're capped with granite blocks. So this is like stuff that we see in our, ancient structures, like in Egypt, or ancient sites of power, where they were, harnessing the earth's energy and using it for different purposes. And so here we have this in the bottom of this house, where all these crazy things happen, and that time slip happened just above that room. So that's one example. Another one that I like to talk about is the famous poet Goethe, and he includes this story in his work Dichtung und Wahrheit, or in English, is Poetry and Truth. And one day he's walking down the road. He's heading to Dressenheim, which is a city in Germany. He's been having an affair with a young woman there. And as he's walking down the road, he's just lost in thought, kind of zoning out, like we do these days. Like when we're driving down the road and we're zoning out and we miss our turn, right? So he's kind of doing the same thing. But he notices on the other side of the road, here is this man in a gold-trimmed gray suit, which finds very unusual. As he turns to look at the man straight on, all of a sudden he loses it. The guy disappears. He's gone. He's like, what in the world happened there? He didn't understand it at the time. It was very, very bizarre. But of course, he notes it because of what happened. So he continues on his way. A couple of years later, he's walking down the same road in the opposite direction. And as he passes into that location where he had that experience, all of a sudden he looks down at himself and he's like, oh my gosh, I was the man in the gold-trimmed gray suit, because that was what he was wearing that second time as he's passing through there. And realizes it was myself the whole time. So this gets passed off as a doppelganger incident. You look up doppelgangers on Google, you'll find this story. But it's not really a doppelganger. It's really a time slip. And I believe what had happened here was, as he was walking down the road and he was quote unquote zoning out. He was in a meditative state. It wasn't full meditation, obviously, because he's walking along. But it was enough of a meditative state that he was able to tune into his energy from another point in time in that same location and get a glimpse of it. And when he started noticing that man and turned to look at him, he broke that concentration, because now he's focusing on this guy, and that meditative state was broken, and he lost the connection there. But that's another great example of a time slip.
Now, having an understanding of these concepts could change the way we look at hauntings and the paranormal in general, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, I'm not going to say that explains all hauntings.
Right.
They can be a variety of different things. Yeah, some of these are going to be human spirits that have not passed on and what have you. But some of them, yes, would absolutely be time slips, and we need to start looking at some of these cases in a bit of a different light. Yeah.
Right on. Now, let's get some examples of time travelers. This is very interesting. They've had these interesting pictures throughout history, but tell us some of the ones that you get into in your book.
Yeah, there's a time traveling hipster, and I'm not going to sit here and say whether or not they really are time travelers, what have you. They're fun photos, and they're interesting to look at, and really investigate the details of it. Like the time traveling hipster. So that's the one where it was a South Forks Bridge. This is British Columbia. The photo was taken back in the early 1940s, and everybody in the photos pretty much dressed to that point in time. But you have this one guy that they call the hipster, because he's got these wraparound sunglasses, and he's got what looks like a silkscreen shirt, and he has a portable camera in his hand, and so he looks very, very out of place. Now, technically speaking, there were wraparound sunglasses that just started to come out. So, yeah, conceivably, he could have gotten a pair. The shirt, people say, well, that was a Montreal Maroons shirt. this was a hockey team in the NHL in the 1920s. When you look back at the Montreal Maroon photos of their uniforms and everything, and it's like, oh, it would have to be some sort of rare alternate uniform because that wasn't the color scheme for that particular uniform. It was done a little bit differently, even though the font was the same. And then the camera, yeah, technically Kodak had a camera that would have been like that at that time. It had just come out. So he would have to be like really on top of his game. Like, I'm getting the newest, greatest stuff, even though I got this vintage shirt from the 1920s, some alternate uniform. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Also, the guy looks like our buddy Johnny Enoch. So I've kind of
Yeah.
I've kind of elbowed Johnny a couple of times, like, hey, what in the world were you doing there in the 1940s?
Right
So
on.
it's a fun photo.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
dissect, yeah.
Now let's get into what our dreams tell us about the nature of time and the possibilities of time travel.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do in our dream state. Our brain enters into different states of being. It passes through beta, delta, theta, all these different brainwave states. And of course, people are familiar with like REM sleeping and dreaming and these sorts of things. And in those different states, we can access different information. We talked a little bit before about the ability to actually travel a bit in our dreams and actually be able to get glimpses of the future. And that's why, we might have a dream of being at a location, different things happen. And then all of a sudden, a week or two down the road, we're at that location, these different things happen. You're like, oh my gosh, I just had a dream about all of this, had a premonition. But there's other things that we can access within our dreams. We can access within our meditation, and that would be like the collective unconscious or the Akashic records and these sorts of things. So this is, eternal knowledge that is available to us. Things regarding the past, present, future. It's all there. All the knowledge of the universe currently exists, and we're able to, freely access these things. So, like when it comes to the collective unconscious, it's interesting how over the centuries, you notice that, especially like during the 19th century, during the 1800s, where all of a sudden you would have 5 different eventers all working on the same thing, when they're all in different parts of the world, and it's like, how in the world did they all start trying to invent the same thing when they didn't really have a connection with each other? And so things like that are fascinating, where something's happened with the vibration of the world that this information was a little bit more accessible to them. You have guys like Tesla who, when he was younger, he talked about being able to astral project and things like this. So he was very much in tune with the knowledge of the universe, and I believe that's why he was way ahead of his time. Is he was getting those records and bringing them back here to his current point in time, but it was so far advanced, people would laugh him out of the room for it. So yeah, these things are definitely accessible to us, whether it's through our dreams or through meditation.
Now, I've had a couple of guests that claim to have been able to have these out-of-body or astral experiences by putting themselves into altered states of consciousness and be able to not only access different timelines, but change the timeline that they were on and the trajectory and their entire reality. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's possible. I believe that's why we have different things like the Mandela effect play out. And all of a sudden something's changed where, now we have different experiences where, all kinds of people from across the world are like, wait a second, that's not the case. It was, this other way, whatever it might be. So yeah, it's, and the question comes up when we start talking about this, all time existing, the idea of free will. Some people don't like the idea that if everything is there, then that must mean my fate has been written into stone. That everything's predestined and I have no free will. And I don't believe that's the case. I believe you still have the power to be able to change and modify your life. And as we move in and around through time, those changes have a repercussion to whether it's the future or whether it's the past. So yes, the future can influence the past. And I have a very personal story in regards to this, in which, and it's a cute story. Excuse me. Again, I'm still nursing my
No
throat
worries.
here. I've done a lot of speaking here lately. Yeah. So when I was in first grade, my current fiance, Jennifer, we've known each other since then. And all of a sudden, we're in the library. I'm just going through a stack of books, and we didn't really have a lot of interaction to this point. But all of a sudden, she just lays a kiss on me on my cheek, and I'm like shocked. What in the world was that? It was just out of nowhere. Um, and so, I mean, we were friendly with each other, right? And we continued to be so through that year. We were in fourth grade together. We kind of quote unquote dated for a month in seventh grade, and we were 12-year-olds. How much do you really date when you're 12? And then I had moved at the beginning of eighth grade. But thanks to the marvels of social media, years later we reconnected, and we didn't really establish a romantic relationship until last year. We just kind of caught up with each other. How's your life going? That sort of thing. If our paths cross, we'd get together. And during that time, I had asked her, so what in the world was that kiss you laid on my cheek? Back in first grade, and she just kind of was like, I don't know. You just had this chubby little cheek sitting out there, and something told me to kiss it. Okay, cool. So last year, she came on my Ireland tour, and we just really hit it off, and that's where our our romantic relationship started. So we decided when we got back to the States to go visit our old haunts from when we were kids, and her parents still live in the same town. So we go to our old elementary school, Juniper Park, which is now part of the college campus here, as Performing Arts Center now. And walking around the grounds, peeking through windows, that sort of thing. Get to the library, and we're looking through the window, and it's set up like a little music room now. We're pointing at the spot. There it is. That's where you kissed me on the cheek. And all of a sudden, Jennifer starts yelling through the window very playfully, kiss him, kiss him. We're laughing about it. Oh, that's cute. Okay. But as as we're leaving, kind of occurs to us, wait a minute. There was something she had said. There was something that had told her to kiss my cheek in first grade. So was it her 48-year-old self calling out across time to kiss my cheek? So
Wow.
here's an instance here where the future was influencing the past. She would not have kissed my cheek in first grade if her 48-year-old self hadn't called out across time for her to do it. So and it becomes one of those, which came first.
Right.
So it's like a bootstrap paradox.
Oh, that's cool. Now let's get into you kind of touched on the possibility that we have major influence over this reality, even though time is all occurring at the same time and all the data is there. We can still manipulate, manifest, and affect our reality in profound ways. And this also goes to the possibility of some sort of simulated reality. And I know that's a very simple term to put what we're probably in right now, because it's so much more extremely sophisticated and incredible than that. But I want to get your insights into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely believe in the simulated universe. We relate it to something like a computer program, because that's the context of our current technology. And of course, the Matrix movies were very big in pop culture. So that's what we think of. But I think it's going to be something more like organic, biological, something on the molecular level, that sort of thing, rather than a computer program.
Right.
Even our ancient religions talked about us being in a simulation, even though they didn't use that term. Like ancient Eastern traditions, when we talk like reincarnation, we're starting at some sort of home world, essentially logging in, for lack of a better term, when we are born, and we live out a life. We learn some things along the way. We pass away, and we go back home, and then we do it all over again in a constant cycle. And even Christian traditions, teaches that we're in this world right now, preparing for another world. So it's very, very similar concepts. So when we talk being within a simulation, again, it's not um, it's not going to be a computer, and but we can use that analogy because that's the way we think these days. You think of, I mentioned him earlier, Tesla. So 130 years ago, during the Spanish-American War, he had developed basically a drone. They called it a teletomaton back in the time, and this was a little submarine that he had created that would work on radio waves and could launch torpedoes and things like this. It was small, it wasn't large, but it was really essentially our first drone. Now, he believed that he created like the first artificial sentient being because this thing could like make its own decisions, where to go, where to fire at, that sort of thing. And then he even went further and told people, I can build an automaton of myself, and it would look like me, it would act like me, it would make decisions like I would be able to talk like me, all these sorts of things, right? So he's really talking about AI. He's talking about building a robot and impregnating it with artificial intelligence. It's 130 years ago. This isn't something. This is why they laughed him out of the room, because you wouldn't be able to do that. Now, in his context, in his day, he's thinking, this is going to be like gears and wheels and radio waves and things like that. Silicon microchip wasn't really invented until after he had passed away, but that is the technology that has enabled us to go down this road of being able to create more sophisticated drones, be able to create artificial intelligence, be able to create the computers that all of this runs on right now is a silicon microchip. So he didn't have the technology back then, but he had the concept, he had the understanding of it. And I think the same is true when we talk like simulated universe. We have the idea, we have the concept, we're using our current technology to be able to wrap our heads around it, but it's going to be far, far different. And so when you have, again, we're going to use our context of a computer program, and you can look at it like a computer game or something like that. Take like your take Super Mario, right? Everything was already there on the cartridge when you plugged it in, right? All the information for the game was there, but you as the player were basically stuck in this linear progression. You could move out through the level, do the different things. You could run and jump, which is similar to what our world. You could do different things within this world, though, where you can punch a brick and all of a sudden you get a mushroom and you grow 3 times as tall and stuff like that. So similar ideas, a lot of things different within the actual game world, but all the information was there. Now, the programmers, when they were putting all of that together, they could move in and about, at their will. And so that's the idea that we're looking at here when we talk about like different dimensions and we're plugging into a simulation. That sort of thing is that we are coming from a higher level, coming in from a higher dimension, and if we could take ourselves up to that other dimension, then we would be able to see everything that is there, because all the information is there. Before, when we talk about collective unconscious, the Akashic records, that's where it's all there. It's a matter of being able to try to bend or break those rules to be able to access it.
Do you think that synchronicities could be a form of some of this phenomena, like time slips, where we get these messages from the universe and these events happen in our lives that lead us in certain directions if we pay attention, and they can be either beneficial or highly terrible depending on the direction that we take, but these synchronicities are there to lead us in certain directions? And could it be possibly ourselves sending ourselves a message from the future or past?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it's all there, and our consciousness, being broadcast into this world. Well, you have to think about this. If all of our lives are here, all of our past lives, all of our future lives, if it's all here, then our consciousness from the beyond that's being broadcast here is aware of all of these different things on some sort of level. All the information is there. So yeah, I believe there are times where we kind of get that nudge and that familiarity of, well, this is the road to go, or 2 things line up so succinctly. Like, oh, that was interesting. The information's all there, and it's a matter of recognizing it and being able to tune into it.
Do you think there could be any danger to exploring the technological aspects as far as some of the more powerful groups on this planet, some just like we were talking earlier, CERN, some of the technologies that's being developed? Do you see that if we gain any understanding of this, that there could be dangers meddling with it?
Well, always, anything that you do like this, really anything you do in life, is going to have some degree of danger to it, right?
Yeah.
Especially you take a place like, CERN, where, smashing particles together, things like that. I mean, it releases great quantities of energy. I mean, there's always a danger in something like that. When we look at, we talk about like great cataclysms that have occurred. Are we somewhat to blame for those different things happening? When you look at, the Atlantean civilization, what really happened there? How did they actually become destroyed? Was it a cataclysm from above? Was it themselves? There are a lot of different theories on that particular thing. Or you look at some of the technology that ancient Egyptians had and things like that, where they had devices that we can't find today. What actually happened to them? You see a lot of the different friezes and artwork where they're holding these rods. Well, we don't have the rods today. What happened to them? You see the depiction of the Jed pillar. Oh, fine. We see a lot of the depictions on the wall. We see like trinkets that were made depicting the Jed pillar. We haven't actually recovered a Jed pillar. So what was it? Right. A lot of people liken it to, it looks like a Tesla coil. Did they have some sort of technology with these different devices that maybe they weren't using them properly? Maybe they got, I want to say abusive, but they got careless, I guess is a better term. They got careless with some of their technology and things happen. So yeah, we need to take some care in how we utilize these different types of technologies.
Now, you also touch on the possibilities of what could be occurring with abduction, extraterrestrials, and time loss associated with those.
Yeah, absolutely. So, extraterrestrials coming to our planet and interacting with us. Some of them, yes. Excuse me. Some of them, yes. A physical level. We might have some downed craft. We might have some physical interaction for somebody that has arrived here in a physical craft. It's hard to believe that they would be using Newtonian physics because of the great distances that they would have to travel. But maybe they've utilized some sort of, Einstein-Rosen bridge, some sort of wormhole, that sort of thing. But many of these are traveling interdimensionally as well. Beings and entities that they might reside somewhere else in the cosmos and know how to use the different dimensions to be able to travel to here. They may live in another dimension. We tend to forget that with all of these up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions, there are other beings and entities living within these dimensions. So they could be traveling from there as well. Now, when they come here and they abduct someone, whether it's for study or whatever they're doing, if they take them back into that other dimension from whence they came, time is going to work differently. So again, everything above here, everything above this fourth dimension, that's outside of our perception of what time is. It's going to act very, very differently. So you have a lot of these cases in which, it seemed like maybe an hour went by. It was actually a few days and things like that. And that's because things are happening in different intervals within these other dimensions. And we have stories like this that go back. When we look at like fairy lore and things like that they were also having these different experiences like this. They just related it to fairies rather than extraterrestrials. So these are experiences that people have been having for a long, long time.
Well, it seems like this phenomena, whether it's what we understood as fairies or now extraterrestrials, it seems to evolve just based on our understanding and what we individually and collectively experience based on this phenomena. And it seems to be constantly changing and evolving. But it also seems like most of these contact experiences are taking place during altered states, sleep states, meditative states. Most commonly, people are having these experiences when they're sleeping, and they'll wake up with these memories, or like you said earlier, they'll have this missing time. So what do you think could be the possibilities that it is us, once again, communicating with ourselves in different ways that we can understand and perceive just based on our own awareness at the time?
Yeah, I mean, that could be. And I do talk about that within the book, where some people have attributed different UFOs, UAP sightings, things like that, as they're not extraterrestrials. They're time travelers from the future. They are us. They are ourselves. And sure, I'll agree that some of them are. I guess what bothers me is when in any of my work and research, it bothers me when somebody says, like, all of this phenomena over here, it is this one thing. And it's like, well, no. It's a lot of different things that happen to be using the same energetic modality. So sure, some of these UFOs, UAPs can be time travelers. They could be us from the future, or even very distant past. We talked about, hey, the Egyptians, Atlanteans, things like this are having that technology too. But again, I think some of it is also physical or traveling in other means. But us from the future, sure. But I'll throw this out there too. Just because it's from the future from this planet does not necessarily make it human. Because our planet's been around for a long, long time, 4.5 billion years. In the grand scheme of the universe, it's kind of small because the universe has been around almost 14 billion, but still a long time. You think about it, the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, and that's just over 1% of the entire length of the age of the planet. So these evolutionary processes occur over vast periods of time. So humans have only been around a very, very short period of time in the history of the planet. How much longer we remain, well, that remains to be seen. But let's take, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million years from now, 65 million years, a small period of time in relation to the entire length of the planet, because we're going to be around another 5 billion years until the sun takes us out. So let's fast forward to that period of time. Do we really think humans are still going to be here? Maybe. We may have annihilated ourselves by then. Enough things will have changed on the planet to change the climate, change the shape of the continents, all that sort of thing. We may have entered into another ice age. We might not be here, and conditions may have become as such that we may have gone off somewhere else in the cosmos to colonize another planet. Okay, so we might not be here that long in the future, but at some point there could be an extraterrestrial civilization that finds our planet, deems it inhabitable for their race, and sets up shop and develops technology, and perhaps they develop that time travel technology. They want to discover the history of the planet, and they come back in time. So yes, it could be something indigenous to our planet. It could be something from Earth that has traveled back in time here, but it might not be human. And it could even be like another life form, another intelligent life form that has evolved on this planet long, long from now, that develops technology, including time travel, and comes back. So yeah, time travelers, sure, but not necessarily human.
Now, while we're on aliens, we're in very interesting times, to say the least, when it comes to disclosure and some of the information that's coming out from our government, mainstream media, and some of the strange events that have been unfolding in different locations, like the UFO crash landing in Vegas and the humanoids being seen in South America, and all over the place. There's some very high strangeness going on. There's a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of folks calling for that there could be a fake alien invasion by our government. There's all kinds of speculation and theories and conspiracies going on right now, but it's super interesting times because we've never experienced any sort of information like this coming out from our own government. So, of course, people's minds are going to run crazy with it, especially because we really haven't had any physical proof or evidence come out about any of this yet. It's all based on what these people are saying, and we're just supposed to blindly believe it. But it is interesting that they're even saying it now. So I want to get your thoughts into what could be happening.
Yeah, it's an interesting point in time. And you're right. It's all anecdotal. It's just, we have to trust what they are telling us. At least as far as, well, and what's great about the hearing, what was it, last month now? Or very end of July. When was it? End of July? It was some weeks ago now.
Yeah, it was a few weeks ago.
Time has flown. And what's great about it is that at least the discussion is happening. The government can no longer just carte blanche deny everything like they have been for decades, because there's too much technology at our disposal now. The common person has a 4K camera in their hip pocket, right? So just, there's something up there. Boom, let me get some video of it. And there it is. So they can't continue to deny. So the government is at least acknowledging, okay, something's going on. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to give us full disclosure. And they had the great here and there. You got Grush, you got Fravor, etc. And the conversation is happening. So that in and of itself is a good thing. But like the other day here, the government posts their website, and they've got some of the little videos on there. But it's just a way for them to continue to control the narrative. They're at least saying, here's some stuff that we can't make sense of, and it's stuff that we're all aware of. This is nothing new. We've been aware of these stories for a long time, and they're just saying, okay, we don't have an answer for this, but it's still them trying to control the narrative with giving us a little piece of acceptance for us on our part that yes, we're not totally crazy now, which that part is good, but they're still trying to control as much as they can.
And it's so interesting, going back to the possibility of sort of a simulation theory. Could it be that we are manifesting everything that's happening in reality based on our awareness and the events that unfold as we experience them, and as perceivable time goes on, we're introduced to the possibility of aliens and extraterrestrials more and more, and now our authority figures are telling us that it's real and that these entities exist out there. So the more we absorb that into our consciousness, the more we have a collective belief in it. Could it be that we are manifesting or creating these experiences in a way?
Well, in a way. So yeah, the more we become accepting of something, the more we introduce something into our lives, the more we're going to see of it. So it used to be decades ago, people really on the fringe that were accepting of this, but we've seen more and more of it over the years. Of course, our pop culture really helped for those things to happen as more movies and books and things like this came out of the subject and began to intrigue people, and people were experiencing things and seeing things in the sky, or like the abduction cases, that sort of thing. So it became more and more and more of our culture, and so yeah, there is definitely a collective power that has risen here, and kind of that subconscious thing. So when we talk about, again, kind of tapping into the collective unconscious, I mean, there is intent behind all of that too. You can, if we just take a meditation, you usually go into that meditation with some sort of intent. And if you're looking for information, it might not happen during that meditation. It might happen several meditations down the road, or even while you're not meditating, all of a sudden the thing manifests, whatever it was that you were looking for. So you take a collective whole of all these people that are now trying to manifest these things, then yeah, we're going to see more and more and more of that. And we've seen experiments along the way where you have a mass group of people concentrating on like lower crime in a city for a day, and all of a sudden, okay, there's lower crime there for that day. So that's a type of manifestation. So when we look at it for something bigger and external to happen, yeah, that's true too, because we're all tapped into the energy of the universe. We're all interconnected, from here to the planet, to the sun, to the solar system, to other galaxies, to the universe as a whole. Everything is connected.
Excellent. Right on. Mike, this book is incredible. Great conversation. Before you head out, tell us about anything that you have that's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few different conferences coming up here. Phenomicon out in Utah. We've got a Connecting the University event in Middleborough, Massachusetts. So that's a 4-part presentation that I put on, getting into topics like this, time travel. We also get into like stargates of ancient Egypt, Atlantis, these sorts of things. And then, of course, we're going back to Egypt next April. Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour. It's April 16th through the 28th. Also, Conscious Life Expo in February. So, yeah, I got a lot of different things coming up here.
Excellent. Mike, always love our conversations. We'll be doing it again in the future for sure. Before you go, let everyone know once again where they can find all your content.
Yeah, absolutely. MikeRicksecker.com. That's my primary website. You can find the links to all the books there, to the tours, those sorts of things, my event schedule. And then ConnectedUniversePortal.com is my online learning portal. So come visit that as well.
Excellent. Thank you again, Mike. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.